Grab yourself a coffee, get comfortable. We're about to get started. I'm excited to have this conversation with our guest today. You won't want to miss it. Unfortunately, we won't have time to catch every comment, so if there's something very important that you want seen, please consider using a super chat. As always, be respectful. We're glad you're here, and enjoy the show. Happy Saturday, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. As always, I'm Dustin, Keto Simple, and we've got my good buddy John here.
Hi, everybody.
How we doing, John?
Dude, I am lovely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic today. We've got a nice subject to talk about today. We're going to be talking about specifically, get the words out of my mouth, specifically men's mental health, because this is June. And what does that mean, John?
It means not only is it Pride Month, but it's June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And
very much so.
Yeah, we're gonna have a talk about that today.
Yeah. So so you reached out to me and you wanted to talk about health, men's health. You wanted to talk about mental health.
Sure.
Men's health, mental health, and we decided to, it's the perfect time to do it because it is June, and we talked about I'm usually better at this, but we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
We if we can jump in, we talked about what we would like to discuss about the specificities of how men view mental health, right?
Right, 100%. How we view it, how it's viewed by others, and kind of how not only do we view it, but how we kind of just put it off like it's still not very important to anybody, or to us anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been told your whole life that to suck it up, to toughen up, right? So let's start right here. When was the first time in your life that you can recall you were told to toughen up?
Oh, probably 4, 5, 6 years old, probably.
Yeah. Did you know what toughen up meant at that age?
Be a man, but I didn't know what that meant.
Exactly. Right. So
yeah.
how are we supposed to navigate? Good luck.
Well, I mean, but realistically, if you want to break it down, the people telling us to do that probably had no idea either.
Well, of course. Yeah. So exactly. How are you supposed to learn to take care of what's best for you when the teaching you're receiving isn't what you need it to be?
Yeah. I mean, I never questioned that, to be honest. And even then I didn't question it because, I mean, you're a kid.
Yeah, you just assume that the people that are nearest to you know everything and they have an understanding of comprehension around them. And as we get older, we learn that that's not true. Isn't that right, Dustin?
It has never been true. It's still not true. There is never a point in time that any of us know everything about anything.
Absolutely.
I'm still waiting to feel like an adult.
Same. I'm trying every day, right?
I'm a grandpa and I don't feel like an adult.
No, be happy, right? Stay curious like a child. And even as a grandparent, you can still have that whimsical curiosity in life. And it's a beautiful thing. A lot that gets lost, as a man, toughen up, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, so that begs the question. The major question here would be then, why do men see mental health as a weakness?
I mean, think about it. Somewhere along the line, we got handed a definition of strength that was incorrect. It didn't include emotional honesty.
Yeah, I mean, not to be vulgar or crass, but I mean, how many times, especially growing up here in the Midwest in the 80s, did you hear toughen up, pussy?
Oh, no, I mean? For sure. Yeah. It's wild how it doesn't translate,
I mean, it's and probably not something that's said as much now, but for you and I being almost the same age, within a few months of each other, growing up in the early to mid 80s, that was something that we heard all the time. Toughen up.
Yeah.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You know, you were expected to be tough because, you know, this is what happened to me, and I'll be damned if my kid isn't tough, and da 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 da, da, and I'm going to raise them da 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 da. And it's, yeah, that's great. You know, you taught them how to be unmovable. You taught them how to be passionate and angry, but did you teach them how to be understanding? How to listen with intent instead of waiting for your turn to talk, right? Those are the things that men are never taught, and that's just a piece of it, right? I love that we're having this conversation, though. Talk to me more.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where, again, it comes back to the fact that the people teaching us didn't know what they,
Yeah,
they didn't have any understanding,
yeah, yes,
because
sir.
realistically, I think it really stems from the fact that mental health and mental health awareness was never a priority down the line of evolution.
It's never been a subject, right? Like every time it's been brought up, there's always counter opinions, right? There's X, Y, and Z. So it's developed this stigma. Like think about, we don't talk about religion, we don't talk about politics. You talk about being from the Midwest. That's like we don't talk about our politics. We don't talk about our politics. We don't talk about our religion. Well, we're in a pretty interesting situation right now because of those exact things, right? Because people don't have the emotional awareness to have an honest conversation about their beliefs, and that's why people don't ever really learn, right? How are you
We
supposed
can't.
to? What I was going to say,
Yeah, we
how
can't.
are you supposed to teach someone else what you don't know?
Exactly.
No, I agree
And
with you. Yeah,
we're we're always taught, like exactly what you just said. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about the hard things. And there was always the things that are, with our parents or with anybody in our family. Well, we don't talk about that around them. We can't talk about this around them. And
yeah,
it was kind of like a trigger warning without ever knowing the term, right?
sure, sure. I can see that.
And I think we're kind of the first generation, Gen X anyway. I'm Gen X. I think you're right on the cusp of it. Right there where it started to become acceptable as we got older to start talking about these things. But even then, like, I was only kind of half raised by the men in my life, mostly was by women, right? It was my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother. Um, so they were emotional, and they never really told me that side of the things. Were never like, well, my mom would be like, well, I'll give you something to cry about. But then that was more, she just didn't want to hear me cry.
Sure,
But, you know, um, I
it's
don't even think
interesting.
they realized how to really my mom didn't know how to process her emotions.
Of course not. Yeah, it's not just men, my friend. It's human beings. This
Right.
is this is generational. This is generational education that does not exist. We are on the forefront of it.
It is crazy to think that if you really just stop and take a long look at our past, not with just our parents or our grandparents, but just the fact that it was not a necessity for survival. Everything always came first. So I think finally we're coming to a spot where we have, and maybe I don't like to use the word luxury of being able to explore this, but I think that's what it comes down to. We have the luxury to explore this. We're not hunting for shelter. We're not hunting for food. We're not concerned about starvation on a daily basis, to where we can actually come and start to explore things deeper than our day-to-day survival. So how do we feel? How do we interact with each other? How did we get where we are?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it. Is there a question in there? You said how did we, or maybe I missed the.
Well, it's more of a generalized kind of overlook of just how we got to where we are currently, to where now is the first time kind of in history where we've been able to kind of look at that, outside of maybe like 2,000 years ago. I don't know. I don't know.
No,
I don't know enough about this. That's why I was excited to have you on and talk about this subject, because
sure.
I never think about this stuff.
Sure. Well, perfect. So, and no judgment, and thanks for being authentic. God, I can't even speak. Thanks for being authentically you. I love it.
Yeah.
But no, think about it like this. It's an education that has existed, right? It's emotional awareness is being able to listen on the emotional channel and not let your own emotions overtake how you're perceiving what the other person is saying. Getting to that spot is how we were able to like connect with the message that's being sent on the emotional channel. And that knowledge has been around for a long time, actually. Uh, one of the basic premises is oh my goodness, I'm totally having a brain fart right in this moment. I'm absolutely. He said pull it out. That's here it is. Oh, so here you go. Here's me being authentic and vulnerable. I can't produce an example right off the cuff just because I was ill prepared for that question. Um, but I do appreciate it though. So I guess my question for you is what could we do when it comes to how we convey teaching what we know, right? So actually, you know what? Let me rephrase. Let me back it all the way up. You asked specific. What was the question again? I kind of got lost because you said something and then you rephrased it and then you kind of it was like an opinion but in a question form. So I don't know how to respond to that. Really, I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, it's just where we're finally at a spot where we can start to unpack all of this.
Sure. I okay. So I see. I see. Okay. Okay. So right. I mean, the teachings of Buddhism, uh, the like all the unifying themes of like Taoism, Christianity, all that stuff that's out there. That's literally emotional intelligence at the core. It's just smeared by dogma and all this other stuff over the time. It's pretty interesting stuff. But I don't know what to say other than, this education exists and it has for a very long time. Like think about philosophers. Like are you familiar with philosophy or stoicism at all?
Vaguely, because that's what I was trying to get out of like the 2000 years ago. Like, it's like, like Plato and all the people like whatever the when philosophy became kind of a thing as far as our history
Sure.
is concerned.
Sure, yeah, I don't have any specific references I can give you right off the cuff. I'm unfortunately not scholarly.
That's all right. I don't know. but I guess the best question would be how do we take all of that so we're not really delving into the past or into any one specific thing like stoicism or anything like that, but how can we translate that to the modern man in as we are today? How do we translate that to
Well, you have to take accountability
us?
for yourself. You have to take
Right.
accountability for the choices you make. You have to catch your emotions before you overreact in a moment and actually slow down and learn the techniques to how you feel and bringing awareness to said moments. That's the education that's been lost. How
Yeah,
does that
I
make
think
you feel?
accountability is one of those big ones too, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to just blame anything. Anything. You get angry because you get upset because. Now, I mean, those things are genuine most of the time because we don't just get angry for no reason, or
Well, yeah, sure.
we
Anger
don't
comes
get.
from fear.
Yeah.
Fear of being less than, of someone being superior to you. I mean, that's basic psychology.
And I've always had a question about that. How do we get from fear to anger?
You
Because
gotta,
I know when I get angry, like if I'm trying to discipline a child, or what, I try to think about what makes me angry, and I never connect it with fear because I'm not like necessarily afraid of what
well, sure. You don't realize that because you don't know enough. You don't know what you don't know, and that's okay. So imagine that by the time you're 5 years old, every habit that you understand how to be rewarded, how to be. This is this makes me feel safe. This gets me rewarded. this person, will do this if I do that, and this is scary, this is that. So what you do is you have all these experiences, and then your consciousness comes online, and then you start stacking experiences. Well, the last time I did this happened, so I'm going to try this a little bit differently, and that stacks up on all these different experiences you have in life, and before you know it, you're judging and predicting and projecting, and it's all based off of a 5-year-old's fear-based perspective of reward and punishment. So your question was, is how do you get from fear to anger? Because you didn't see the correlation.
Yes.
So think about it like this. When you're angry, can you describe that feeling?
It's usually something that didn't happen that I was expecting to happen, or I had provided instructions for something to happen and it didn't happen.
So that's how you get angry. I asked if you could describe how being angry feels. Could you describe it in your body?
I feel, you'll feel let down. You'll feel.
Sure. In your physical sensation, though, what does that feel like in your body? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your head? Does it feel like fire? Does it feel like ice?
I don't know. It's hard to put into words, to be honest with you.
Sit with it. Sit with it until the words come. Feel it.
That's
no judgment, brother. Take your time.
I mean, it's one of those things like you just never really kind of think about it. And even when I'm angry, like,
we're bringing awareness to it, brother. You just nailed it. Most people don't take the time to bring awareness to how they feel and where it comes from.
It's just angry. I don't know. How do you describe angry? That's like describing purple to someone who can't see.
Sure. I disagree. I think a lot of people could describe anger. I bet you could describe anger if you gave yourself just a little bit longer. What does it feel like in your body?
There's a tension.
Perfect. Where?
I guess it depends on how bad it is. It could be
Sure.
It could be full body. It could just be chest. It could just be, I don't know. It's a little bit different depending on the severity of the anger, I guess.
Perfect. So in any of those moments, before you feel that pain in your chest, what happens? That trigger moment that you said just a moment ago. What triggers in that fraction of a second that makes you feel like that?
Like something has disappointed me. I mean, something has, not gone the way that I wanted it to go.
Sure. And those are what we would call a reaction, right? You are reacting to the circumstances. So what this comes down to, and this is what Johnny Boy does, is I bring awareness to everyone's mental habits and reactionary habits. It's a it's a thing, right? But to go back to talking about how we react, and anger is related to fear. So at some junction, anger comes, whether it's righteous anger or otherwise, whether you're some agreement up here from this original 5-year-old's perspective that you've experienced and stacked onto, which has made you yourself in this moment. If any of those Jenga pieces get knocked, you're going to respond with fear or anger in varying intensities. And fear and anger are one and the same because they evolve into the other. It's think about it like this. What is the root purpose of being angry?
Another thing I've never thought of before, so let me think about it.
No problem. I'm going to take a drink while you stir.
not sure.
I'm sure it serves some survival function, like you were
Well,
talking
I
about
mean,
earlier, right?
it serves some,
Yeah. So I
in the very
wonder,
basics. Yeah, in the
it's
very
almost like a
basic,
tribal instinct, right? Like if you feel an injustice has been done to you or your people.
like a retaliation type.
Yeah. So that's almost like it's coming from fear of expectation of something happening again. And you can react with anger because you know that if you control the situation with that attitude, there's a good chance it won't happen like that again. Now, do you understand how fear and anger are related?
To a degree.
Perfect.
I'm still not convinced, and I
That's
don't. And
okay. You don't have to be convinced. Those are
right,
facts.
right, right. I mean, it's one of those things. Like I understand, but I've got to get it. It's you have to get it
Sure,
worked out in
practice.
your head.
You got to sit with that. It's called comprehension and understanding. You comprehend it. Now it has to be absorbed and understood. Well done. Well done. So, men's mental health. Let's talk about it. My friend, you do a lot for your community with food and otherwise. So, when it comes to your community, what's one of the biggest mental health hurdles that people struggle with when it comes to the ketogenic diet and sticking to it?
One of the major things that comes to mind is there's a couple different pieces, but let me kind of bring it back to the beginning. So when you are not feeling when you are unhealthy
Hmm.
and you are working to get past eating a certain way, say you have a food addiction, say you have uncontrolled eating, you have you just feel like crap, and because I know one of the major hurdles is clearing up the brain fog, finding the mental clarity, the depression. There's oftentimes a depression that sets in when you're eating unhealthy. And
Mm.
then once you start to clear that away and you start to find a way that works, then that will start to lift. And I think then with the mental clarity, then you can start to kind of come out of some of the depression, some of some of the habits. Like for me, as a food addict, not being able to control how much I eat, never being able to find, never being able to find satiety, always eating until I was about ready to physically rupture,
Hmm.
and then finding a place where the food noise starts to lift and you can get to a point where you can hear your satiety signaling, telling you, well, you're done now. You don't have to keep going. You're done.
Sure.
And then you can just and you don't have to eat so much. And it's kind of difficult sometimes to put that into words because it's only been recently that I've been able to do that because I didn't even know it was a thing. I just knew I liked this food and I'm going to eat as much of it as I can possibly stuff in.
Yeah.
And once I found how to eat for myself to where I wasn't doing that anymore and I was eating to just where I was done,
Yeah.
it was such a crazy feeling to be just done and not probably, a couple of bites from death, to be honest with you. But that's just one of those things with because there's obviously the emotional eating component, and I still struggle with that from time to time.
Mm.
If something, there's often times where things will happen that triggered that emotional, right? I'm just going to go and do this and I'm going to eat this way and I'm going to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Dustin, thank you for being so open and sharing your story with everyone. And I know, I'm sure you've done it numerous times on your show. And I'm just want to reaffirm and say how grateful we are that you're all here, or that you're here and able to, facilitate this for everyone. So thank you. I'm glad you're here. I hear you, man. And I'm glad that you found a way forward for you. A lot of people don't, if I may, what I heard you say is you were struggling to connect with positive habits because of maybe a lack of self-control, of boredom, of I like the way this tastes and I'm just going to imbibe it until, however you want to frame that, right? It could be a restless. You could have just been, you may be one of those people who are, constantly in motion. You might have a latent ADHD, hyper something in there that causes you to, who knows, right? But you have found something that works for you, and that's all that matters. And I'm so excited that you're able to be there for others in this fashion, because it's, your story matters, and giving it to others in this fashion will allow you to be a beacon that people will gravitate towards. So if you could give people the biggest piece of advice that you've learned from your entire health habit journey, what would be the number one habit that you would suggest to your viewers that would benefit them when it comes to their keto journey?
Putting it into a habit, I would say, if it's not in your house, I would say anything you don't want to consume, don't keep it in your house.
That sounds like a good habit. What's a couple other good habits people could have?
If you are in the beginning, before you found your stride, I would say always eat before you go somewhere, like to a party, or always eat what you need to eat before going to a party or a function. I've gone to many restaurants and eaten before I go to the restaurant, order water or a soda when I get there.
That's very good self-control. That is good accountability. That's absolutely the stuff we're talking about. What else would be a perfect habit?
Start to take the journey to understand yourself. So understanding that you do have an issue with food, if that's your problem. Understand you don't always need to understand the mechanism behind why to be successful, because even the why is something that comes along later. But
right,
just understanding that there is an issue and then learning how to best mitigate that issue. So for me, when we started this journey, I knew that I had an issue with how much food I ate, and knowing that I needed to eat. So what I would do is, for my lunches going to work, I would pack probably like 3 people's worth of food into a lunchbox, like boiled eggs, lunch meat, string cheese, whatever, right? Because it could sit there at my desk. And I knew that if I had something that was on plan that I had access to, being in an office setting, there was always a cake coming in. They're maybe buying us pizza today, or they might be doing a pitch in, or they might be doing something. It's an office. There's always candy. There's always donuts. There's always whatever. How can I understand myself and prepare myself for the day to where if there is that going on, I'm going to be less likely to go, well, I don't have anything else, and there's this cake, so I'm going to go get some of this cake.
Yeah.
So just being prepared.
Yes. Not giving in to boredom sounds like a very good habit.
And I mean, I would say that when it comes to food, there is a boredom aspect to it, but there's also a chemical reaction involved as well. And it's often considered lack of self-control, but there's an insatiable hunger that comes with being extremely obese. When you're over, you're 400 pounds. you never find satiety. So satiety is where, for anybody who may not know, satiety is where your body just goes, hey, bud, we're good. Let's go.
Mm.
But to get to be 400, 500 plus pounds, that signaling is broken. So it doesn't matter how much self-control you may have. If you're not eating the right foods, you're never going to find satiety, and you're always going to be hungry, searching for that next meal, because in your mind and in your body, you are starving. And people don't necessarily ever understand that, because people will look at you and go, well, haven't you eaten enough? You're huge. You haven't, and there's a lot of shaming that comes along with that, but there's
you're trying
a
to
lack
fill a
of
void.
understanding.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not just, you're filling, you're filling a sieve that can't be filled because of chemical reactions in the body.
Sure, but I hear you, and I don't know what I don't know. So right, so when those, tell me more about this chemical reaction in people's bodies, because this is stuff I'm unfamiliar with.
Yeah. So so again, it comes back to satiety. So your body has a signaling pathway.
Sure.
That
it tells you you're full, right?
That tells you you're full.
Yeah.
So when you're obese, that signaling pathway is broken. You don't realize you're full until your body is screaming at you physically, I can't hold any more food.
Yeah, you're going to burst. You can feel the
You're
pain.
literally going to pop open. Yeah, you're in pain. And then you wait 20 minutes and that goes away. And then the hunger comes back.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter really what you're doing. There's no real way to distract yourself from it. I mean, you can keep yourself busy. You can do whatever. But that's always a constant there. It's almost kind of like, how when you watch a zombie movie, they have that hunger. Zombies are always moving forward.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like that.
Yeah. I hear you. It's not to absolutely. Correlation would be the void we were talking about, right? Now it's a completely different concept, but it can also be applied here, because as you're, you just said, the endless void is you eat till you're going to explode, and then 10 minutes later you don't feel like you're going to pop anymore, and it's time to eat. That's the cycle of the void. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect.
So my piece of advice, again,
yes, what
from my journey here. So again, I'm not a doctor or healthcare or professional or any of those things. So this isn't construed as medical advice. This is just me talking about what I've found for myself. Sure. Is finding a way to rebuild the satiety signaling. And it takes time. It truly does take time.
How did you do that, by the way? I'm sure that would be something everyone would love to hear.
Well, that comes down to the insulin sensitivity coming back. So like with the insulin model, so where as long as there's insulin in the body, high levels of insulin, so the more carbohydrates and the more sugars and such we eat, we're always producing insulin and pushing that through the body, because the insulin's role is to take sugar and put it into the cells. Where so if that never stops, then you never feel full, you'll never feel satiated. And then once you start lowering that insulin and you start getting to a point where you're not producing as much, and then your insulin sensitivity starts to come back, and you're eating less sugar, you're eating less carbs, you're eating more fat and more protein, you are going to find that you start to regain that food noise. There's like a food noise. And I was trying to explain this to explain my version of food noise to a woman that I had her on last year. She got almost to 600 pounds. And it's almost like, it's like that hunger, but it's almost like a drive that makes you go look in the fridge. It makes you go look in the pantry. It's like you just go and you open the refrigerator and you're looking for something, but you don't know what it is and you can't explain it. It's that all the time.
Yeah.
And then when that starts there's a pull for it, whether it's like
Yeah.
even at the grocery store when you're walking, like you gotta like in the very beginning you gotta like look away as you pass the cookie aisle, because if you see that row of Oreos, you're gonna want those so bad that you can't
Yeah.
handle it.
Yeah. That crave is
And
real.
so that the craving is real. Again, that all comes down, especially in a situation like this with satiety, because that's not the way our bodies are meant to behave.
Sure.
We
Sure.
have a drive for food for survival, yes, but not on the level that makes us obese, or because realistically, fundamentally, being obese isn't the problem. It's a
Sure.
symptom of the problem.
Right. And there's
So
a lot of problems when it comes to obesity. And you could start with pointing the fingers at the sugar industry or habit formation. I mean, there's a gajillion places you could start. We could have an entire year worth of podcasts on that alone.
yeah,
So what
so I mean, even without pointing fingers, it's
sure.
just, I mean, just the food itself and the way just the food, like, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, we eat how our parents ate.
Yeah. Yeah,
So, like,
exactly. Your
diabetes runs in my family.
habit formation because of what you saw, you imitated, brother. Yes. Yes. It's
And it becomes more than imitation. It just becomes, that's how you do it. That becomes how you are.
correct.
And then it becomes almost impossible to course correct, because then it becomes a chemical imbalance.
Right. I hear you, bro. You're putting this together. It's the same language. Keep talking. You're doing great.
Yeah, it's the same habit. I mean, you can kind of break it down, because the things that I remember from being a kid, my mom and my great aunt
Mm.
they love going to smorgasbords. They used to be called smorgasbords, or buffets or whatever. They
Yep.
would go to
Buffet.
at least
Yep.
the big giant buffets, and my mom was a bigger woman. My great aunt was a big woman too. And that was a thing, but it didn't matter if it was a pizza buffet or like a big, huge smorgasbord. It didn't matter. It was just, that was what they did. That was entertainment for them.
Yeah.
And I understand there's a thought process out there that food isn't entertainment, food isn't celebration. And I would disagree with that on a fundamental level, but I understand the sentiment,
Yeah.
because if you find satiety, then you can work past that, where it's like food. And the reason why I argue the whole thing with food is entertainment, food is family, because what's brought us together through the centuries, it's almost always been food. They had a kill, they brought it in. Now the tribe can eat today, or the tribe can eat for a few days. We celebrate. We all, there's a harvest, and we celebrate the harvest. It's almost always been it's basically a celebration of survival.
Hmm.
So that's ingrained in us. But at that level, like with my mom and my great aunt, it wasn't so much a celebration of survival. It was a celebration of being able to eat as much as they wanted. And they didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know that it was, my mom was diabetic. My great aunt were diabetic. I'm sure before I went keto, I was a severe diabetic. You don't get to be 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever 100 pounds without being a diabetic. Now,
Yeah.
you could be diabetic and skinny as well, but that's beside the point. But
If I can jump in real quick, it sounds
yeah,
like you're bringing, and thank you for sharing so passionately and so openly with all of us. It sounds like you're bringing awareness to the choices that they made to view to view food as a leisure activity
yes,
is part of their habit choices that ended them in the circumstances they found themselves in, and you by proxy imitating that and being brought up in that environment and got yourself where you were, and that was no fault of your own, of course, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you found this space to enable all these people, and you've given everyone beautiful habits to take forward today. Again, I just wanted to say thanks again for this opportunity and being here and talking about men's mental health and being open and vulnerable with you and asking questions and supporting your fellow man. That's beautiful. So if you could give any piece of advice to anyone who's starting their journey from your heart, and not a habit, but a piece of advice from your heart, what would it be?
Just be all in.
Hmm.
Because
In what way?
don't come at this like I'm going to do it this week and then I'm going to go back to what I was doing before.
Hmm.
It's not. It's like it's not a diet. You have to be all in, because in a way that you're willing to make the changes, you're willing to make the sacrifices to make yourself better. And that doesn't mean whether you're going full carnivore, keto, paleo. It doesn't even matter to me if you're doing Weight Watchers or just calorie counting, whatever it is that you're doing in your path to become healthier. You have to be all in. You have to really put in effort. One of the things that we did when we first started this is we went through our pantry, we went through our fridge, we donated food to people, or we just threw things out, depending. So anything that we needed to get out of the house left. It wasn't, well, let's eat it now and get it out. Let's go on a 2-week bender and eat everything that's in the house. Let's finish up these 4 pounds of margarine and let's go ahead and whatever. Let's finish this mac and cheese. Let's finish these frozen pizzas, whatever.
Yeah.
It was, let's get rid of it, throw it away. Let's donate it. Let's give it to friends. Let's give it to people who will use it, because we're done. And this is how we move forward.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. It takes a strong will to make those choices and stand in that ground. And how did you muster the courage to make that stand for yourself?
Well, I didn't do it alone. Shannon and I both did it together. So we did it together.
Yeah.
It was a concerted effort.
Perfect. So you enabled each other then.
Yeah.
It was a team effort. Which one of you pushed the other one harder?
I think it started with a phone call, because I was at the doctor's office and I stepped on the scale and I was over 420 pounds. And I called her and I told her, like, I just stepped on the scale today. I was over 420 pounds. I don't know how to mentally handle this. And I've talked about this before, but the fact when you get to be that big, you're that big. It's not a surprise, but it's not always. It's like, gonna call back to what we said earlier. You can know it, but doesn't mean you can understand it, but it doesn't mean that you have fully come to terms with it. Because I started to buy 5X t-shirts. I was buying 50-inch pants. You know that you're getting big when you're buying, under the gut pants, not over the gut pants. Because I was doing over the gut pants, I'd probably been more like a 65-inch pant.
Oh my goodness.
So you know when you're getting big.
Yeah.
You know it because things become harder. There's certain things that happen that you don't talk about. Like, there was a point in time where I couldn't use our downstairs bathroom anymore because it wasn't wide enough. I couldn't get access, without being too TMI, I couldn't get access to handle my business. So I had to go upstairs anytime I needed to go to the bathroom. So there was a bathroom downstairs that I couldn't use anymore. And there were bathrooms at my work that I couldn't use anymore because they weren't wide enough.
How did that make you feel when you had that revelation?
In the moment, it's just part of, and maybe a perfect segue into something else here, but
yeah, exactly.
Into mental health here, like, in men's mental health. But it's one of those things where, well, this is what I do now. This is my life now. This is how I handle things now. This is what happens now. We got to keep going. How do we go from here? It wasn't, what changes do I need to make? It wasn't, at least at that stage, it wasn't quite there yet. But, I mean, it's always a kind of a building storm. It's always kind of that's coming. You just got to have to find that straw that breaks the camel's back. But that, like, you would think that would be a wake-up call. I can't shit in my own downstairs bathroom anymore. That would have to be the wake-up call, you would think, right? But it's not always. Yeah.
It's like you said, you understand it, but it doesn't dawn. You're aware of it, but comprehension and acceptance hasn't fully hit of, these are the circumstances as they are.
and you're not always ready to deal with it.
Exactly.
You may not be capable of dealing with it.
Yeah, you have to have emotional tools to be kind to yourself when you realize that you've got yourself in a pickle.
And sometimes you don't even and I think one of the biggest pieces is you don't know how to deal with it. You don't know where to begin. That's like that's like trying to clean up a beach one piece of sand at a time. Where do you begin?
Well, you have to begin by being honest with yourself and taking an assessment of what your goals in life are, how you want to show up in the world, and move forward from there.
So
it's unique to every person. Every person has to have their own divine spark, their own moment of this is for me or this is not. And if that moment never happens, which is a lot of people, they don't ever have that moment of clarity of holy shit, if I don't change this is exactly how it's going to keep going.
Because part of me was resigned to take the fate of my mom. You know what I mean? Like my mom had passed away. She'd been obese, strokes, heart attacks. I was like, well, that's going to be me. That's my fate. And then coming back to that day where I stepped on the scale and I was over 400 pounds. And it's like, okay, now it's really real.
Yeah.
This is concrete information, not the shirt, not the pants, not the downstairs bathroom, not a lot of things that are happening, not the sacrifices that I'm making or the concessions that I'm making in my life. It comes to that moment. We had a phone conversation and she said, well, we don't want to try surgery. That'll have to be the absolute last resort that we would take, would be weight loss surgery. Because at the time she is a nurse, but at the time she was a nurse on a floor that handled the problems that come from weight loss surgery. So people would come in after having weight loss surgery and having whatever issues have popped up after a few years to be fixed. So she was seeing that. So she was saying, let's try this low carb thing. Let's try, because keto wasn't in our vernacular. It wasn't even in our radar. We didn't know it was a thing. And so let's try this low carb thing. And we had to make a plan. We had to discover, well, what is low carb?
Sure.
Do we even know what that means? What constitutes low carb? How many carbs is low?
Yeah.
What is a carb? What foods have carbs? We spent countless hours at the grocery store looking at every label and everything that we wanted to eat, looking, well, this has this, like everything has carbs in it. You're like, well, what do we do? And it's such a, and I remember even looking at Oreos, they have the Oreo thins, right? Like the thin cookies. And it's like, you can have 2 of these and it's this many carbs. And I'm like, yeah, but there's no way in hell I'm eating 2.
Right. I may eat 2 dozen. I'm not eating 2 of them.
2 bags, but I'm not eating 2 cookies.
Yeah.
Because I'm a realist and I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not that. And so I was like, okay, that's out of the question. We can't do that. And like all the preconceived notions of what health is starts to go out the window. You're like, well, quinoa is healthy, right? Everyone says quinoa is good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all carbs. Oh, raisins are good for you. Oh, that's all carbs. You're like, all this like fruit cups, that's healthy. That's all carbs. Yeah. You're like, what can we eat? And then it starts to you whittle your way down and you find out, like just meat, some veggies, cheese, whatever. Right. And then not to get into a lesson of what low carb and keto is, but just coming into that where the realization, devising a rudimentary plan, because it's a plan. Let's go low carb. That's the plan. We're going low carb. That's the plan. That's all of it. And then, okay, what does that mean? And then we have to figure that out. And then, okay, now we figure this out. Now we start to move forward. And me being like the kind of nerd that I am, I went into the podcast realm and I started listening to podcasts, understanding. And then, there was a couple of little things like my general practitioner at the time, we were talking about it. And he was like, well, if you want to lose weight, you just got to be in ketosis. But he never told us. He never even elaborated.
Yeah,
he
just sit there. Good luck.
Yep. See you next time.
Have fun.
Yeah, have fun, bud. But I'm not. I don't think he was legally allowed to tell us what that is.
He probably didn't
And
know enough.
I mean, he may not have.
We,
But
sorry, go on.
yeah, I mean, but at least he knew enough to tell me that. But I mean, he was also coming up on retirement. He was an old guy, and I said, but I remember I was looking for recipes, and I remember I kept coming across this website for recipes for epileptic children, and it was a ketogenic recipe site for epileptic children, because that's kind of where the whole thing was kind of developed. And I was like, okay, this is ketosis. Let me look at and see if there's any keto podcasts. Found one, jumped in, and then we basically started keto a couple of months later, just kind of getting ourselves into it. And that's kind of, but I think building the plan, understanding the problem, getting to where you're finally ready to deal with the problem, devise a plan, and then do your best to execute the plan. Because you're asking me for advice that I would give someone. I think figure out what your issue is. Because I mean, even weight isn't necessarily the entirety of the problem. You got to start looking at the root cause of the problem.
Yes, my man. Keep talking.
You're gonna get to your root cause. Why are you so overweight? And yes, it's because you're eating a lot of food. Why are we eating a lot of food? There's a foundational issue there. There's probably a generational issue there. There's a chemical issue there.
Choice?
What are the driving factors? What are the things that are in your control? What are not in your control? What can you start to rectify on your own? And then you will kind of start to see what falls into place after.
Exactly. Whatever you prioritize in life can follow those exact same rules. Well said, my friend. Awareness, devise a plan, stay accountable, move forward. 1% improvement every day over a year is 365%.
Yeah, that's what I try to tell people too. Like whenever I see you'll have somebody, I only lost a pound this week. Well, if you only lose a pound every week, that's 52 pounds in a year you've lost.
Yeah, no shit. Be patient, right?
And it's difficult. When you've got 300 pounds to lose, or 200 pounds or whatever it is, you've got all this to lose. You want to do it right now. But you don't get better right away because you didn't get sick right away.
Yes, sir.
You didn't gain. There's one person I know who did gain like 300 pounds in 6 months, but he had lost it. And then something happened. I can't remember exactly what, but he had lost all of his weight, got down to like 200 and some pounds, and then was back up to like 500 pounds in 6 months. So it can happen, but that's not what normally happens. Most of us, it's generational. It's start like, you're like in elementary school, going into middle school, you start to get a little chubby. You start getting a little chubby because a lot of kids start to get chubby around like puberty. They start to get chubby like late elementary school, early middle school. Kids kind of get chubby a little bit. Maybe probably predominantly what we're feeding them, but that's kind of what we see now. It probably wasn't the way back when, but how do we deal with it? And then, it just doesn't stop. And then, it just kind of keeps going. And then you have to figure a way to fix it. So, I mean, again, this is what the goal that I have here for this channel, the goal that I have for bringing people like you on is to hopefully be a beacon. You said beacon, and I love that word. I actually have some new merch that has a lighthouse on it. But to be a beacon, because there's a lot of people out there like me that need this help, but may not know it, may not know what they're looking for, why they're looking for it. And, even, the people in the chat, some of the people that that resonates with them, even my messages resonated with you in the past.
Yeah, of course.
And that's, if I can share and be vulnerable, share my story, and sometimes graphic detail,
Yeah.
because I think it's necessary sometimes, because there's somebody out there who is going through the same thing.
Hmm.
They're not able to use a bathroom in their house, or they're going through something, or, like they're afraid. Like at my job, I would sit on the toilet and it felt like a seesaw with the one on the other, like the women's side on the other side of the wall.
Mm.
And I'm like, but that was the handicap stall, and that's the one that I had to go into. And I'm like, I hope this never breaks, because that's all I need, is to be soaking wet with toilet water at work in an office building. You know what I mean? There's just like things that are in the back of your head.
Yeah.
And even still, even with all the weight that I've lost over the years, there's still times where I go and I'm out and about to like rest stops are the worst, because for whatever reason they still make their stuff so narrow. Like, I don't know how normal people use them.
Couldn't tell you. Every time I've been in one traveling abroad, it's been you know my size, but I'm also a wee lad, so that's my yay
Yeah.
me. I lucked out, I guess. But no, again, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your journey and being that person for all of us, because it really helps. And like you said, I wanted to touch on something. You mentioned that guy that got down to, like, he was a big fella and got down and then went back up. And that's something that happens to a lot of people in all forms of life, because they start on a goal and they make progress, and then they trip or whatever. And because of those really old agreements and beliefs and habits in their head that they've got up here, that they've been cycling around, that they judge themselves on, they judge themselves a failure. They judge themselves incapable. They judge themselves X, Y, or Z. And then they fall down again. They get depressed again. That depression is such a familiar, comfortable feeling to so many people that they welcome it and they don't even realize it. And food is, of course, as we know, something that a lot of people like to turn to as not as a satiator, but as a comfort. I
Oh
love,
yeah, food is 100% comfort. Even
and
even
yeah,
even where I'm at now, even still, there's still times where you'll, but I'm more aware of it, and
yeah,
I can see it happening in real time, and I'm like, okay, I'm not. Do I let it win sometimes? Sure, it's going to win sometimes, but a lot of times I'm like, okay, this is coming. I know this feeling. I know what I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna go and do whatever I got to do, and then I'm
yeah,
gonna avoid that issue. Sometimes I don't win, and I do succumb to that. And
yeah. And no judgment, man. No one's perfect,
yeah,
right? And that's what I was sharing is that person that you suggested, maybe what happened to them, one of the things that could have happened to them is someone somewhere said something to them, and they believed that sentence, or someone was mean to them, or there's so many things kicking around in each of our heads that are just waiting to come up and sabotage us in the moment when we're taking action. We're trying to be our best self, and we're trying to be accountable for our food choices, or otherwise our drinking, or whatever it is, going to your job, being there for your children. It comes down to priorities. Sitting down, paying attention to what you want, and then taking action on it, taking informed action and making the choices that align with what you want. And if you don't know what choices to make, then you don't know what you want. And if you don't know what you want, you haven't sat and asked yourself what you wanted. It's that easy. I love that you had that moment to realize that what you wanted was more for yourself, and that you had the support team that was there to build with you. Because how many people don't have that mental support team?
most
Mm. How beneficial would you say that having someone in your corner was for you?
paramount. I mean, it was. I mean, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. I wouldn't have started if it wasn't for that.
Exactly. Exactly. So sometimes we have to come to grips with we don't know everything, and that we need to ask for help, and that sometimes being okay with starting in the moment from ground zero, from the absolute worst possible place, is the only way to take a positive step forward. And again, I just want to champion that you got there. Thanks again for having me. I just wanted to say that this has been a beautiful conversation so far, and the amount of care and vulnerability that you've explored here today in front of everyone is it's just absolutely beautiful to behold. So thank you.
Now, I think there's probably still more to explore here. I don't know what your timeline looks like and when you need to be out, but how long you want to go?
Well, I mean, I got about 12 minutes in the, but what do you want to explore here?
Well, I wanted to make sure that you had enough time to talk about anything that you needed to talk about. Make sure you are giving everybody any information that you have for them that they may find valuable from you.
Sure. Sorry, I was just very, very excited to be here for you and talk about you and hear about your exploration and your journey. It's very, very, very inspiring. Thank you. Sure. So on the 27th of June, I'm going to host What We Were Never Taught. It's a free men's mental health webinar. We're going to discuss habit formations and how to learn how to rest. Like, think about it like this. Most men are taught to provide, to fix, to tough it out, to do this, to do that. And you're not really taught to sit and observe how you feel, figure out what you would like to do with your life. Literally everything we discussed here today. All those questions, I don't know. I've never tried that. I don't know. I've never done that. I don't know. We're going to figure out what you don't know during this little meeting, and we're going to figure out how to get you where you want. And that's it. And I'm going to do it for free. And I'm excited. I really am, because this is going to enable people just like you to really decide what makes them happy and how they'd like to live their life, how they want to show up for themselves. And that's what it is, because mental health is giving yourself the grace to be honest and accountable to yourself, to stay true to your choices, to give yourself a North Star and to follow it. That's happiness. That's how you find satisfaction in life. That's how you get from A to B. It's the path. It's not getting there. Because when you get there, then what happens? Are you bored?
You're gonna find something else.
You're gonna Scrooge McDuck and jump in your big pile of money?
Yes.
Of course, right? that becomes your leisurely activity, right? You just dive into money until you're the only person diving into money, and you don't let anyone around you because you don't want anyone else to dive in your money. And then before you know it, you hate yourself because you turned everyone else away, right? It's all about what we focus on. So if you focus on greed, you'll end up with greed. And if you focus on yourself and giving yourself love and the care that you need, the understanding, the comprehension that you need to realize the best of you, you can accomplish anything you want in life. Self-belief is very powerful. Habit formation is how you stick with self-belief. And that's all I wanted to share. It's called What We Were Never Taught. I'd love to drop the link for Dustin to put anywhere for anybody if you were interested.
It's in the description of this live right now, along with your Instagram and your website. Realize Vision Solutions is in the description.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, I'm master certified life coach. I graduated the positive intelligence course. I work with mentally exhausted creative professionals. I'm the bridge between emotional sabotage and the freedom from mental overwhelm. So that's kind of the space that I exist in professionally. But I wanted to say thank you again so much for this conversation. It's been beautiful. Is there anything that you feel that you need to explore for your community about men's mental health, or anything that you feel was left unsaid about your journey?
I imagine there's probably more than I ever know. I mean, at this point, I think we've touched on a lot. It's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you back.
Please.
I don't know how often I'm going to be doing these on Saturdays, but we'll work that out and we'll get back here at some point in the future. But you did say that class that's
June 27th at 7 p.m.
And it's free.
Completely free. 7 p.m. CST. What We Were Never Taught. It says it's for men, but all genders are welcome. So if you're a man, a boy, a person planning on becoming a man, no judgment. Show up. You're welcome
I
there.
mean, really, it's open to everybody, right?
Yeah, the education is open for anyone who's willing to sit through it.
Yep. And again, I said the link and how to get in touch with John is in my the description of this live, and I will probably be sharing this out onto my post with the links and everything, so it's easier to find here in a couple of hours. And with that, John, I want to say thank you for not only coming here but being a friend to me for the last like 20 years, the 20 years
If
that we've been friends.
If this is 2025, I think one of the very first times we hung out was in 1999. So it's been about 26 years.
Yeah. Been a long time.
It's been a long time. I'm grateful that you're still here, and I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for your inspiration and for your beautiful journey. Thank you.
And with that, we're going to go to the credits. And thank you guys again. Thank you all for all the watching on all the platforms. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.